Oh, here we go. The battle against Mugendramon is here in episode 48, and well, considering it's an episode about fighting, it gave us a lot more than just fighting. This episode gave us a lot of information, like a lot. So naturally there's so much to go through with me. I'm just saying. You know, to be honest, I was expecting to sit down here in this video, smug as you like, in my chair thinking, the reboot mate, cleanest you've ever seen. But the reality is I'm a bit frustrated because honestly, considering again it's a fighting episode, it did a really good job of wrapping the story together and putting all the pieces in place. Obviously we'll discuss how it does that, but it adds to my frustration when episodes like this don't look the best they can possibly be. I did say in the pre-show I wasn't expecting the animation to be out of this world, because this is just the start of the climax. This isn't it. And they wouldn't really waste their budget on a one and gone villain. No offense Mugendramon, but it just wasn't there for that. But still, getting this cynicism out of the way early, it should have looked better. It wasn't absolutely terrible, it had a lot of good shots, some decent animation, but after watching the episode twice, it kind of felt like every other moment that wasn't the fighting looked great, and the fighting wasn't animated the best. And you know, look, I'm aware of COVID. I'm aware Japan right now is suffering with COVID very hard, and they're going on a third wave, etc. But when you have episodes like 44 and the Ponchomon episode, when they outsourced external animators to work on the show and it looked fantastic, it frustrates me because Toei clearly overextending themselves here, and I don't want that. I really don't. And there's this like flare of arrogance to think that they can do these kind of episodes better than these humble grassroots animators. I'm really hoping Toei's persistence with the animation doesn't bite them where it hurts, but nevertheless we'll get on with the video. Again, so much to talk about. I hope you enjoy. So this episode, in terms of singing and dancing, does everything really. The storytelling is pretty good, and I think this episode makes all these other like filler episodes of the past few weeks, it makes it all worthwhile. You can see them all here, they're all involved, Leomon's back, they're all in the picture together, and lo and behold, Leomon is that refugee. You know, I didn't want to say I called it, but you can check my Leomon video if you want. You know, it's becoming a standard now. But the importance of this episode can't be overlooked. It really ties together all these random scattered episodes that what people thought they were into what it actually is, assembling this ensemble of Digimon characters that they've helped across the ways. This is why I don't say judge the show based on 10 episodes or 20 episodes. You've got to wait till it's done, because to me it's very obvious where the payoff's going to be in this series with all of these characters here, or at the very least just knowing they still exist and haven't just been written off already. If you had dropped the reboot when the filler episodes were going on, then you wouldn't have the payoff now. So the things this episode does for the story, not even talking about Leomon yet, or Sephirothmon, it does a great job. I absolutely stand by that. Tying in the past with the very recent events makes the story more holistic for all of us to watch. Again, I feel like when this is all done and you watch it from start to finish, it'll be far smoother than what we have right now, because every time you get a filler episode, everyone's like, it's just filler, the story's disjointed. No, they're building up to something, but you wouldn't know that because your crystal ball isn't working today. Okay. Moving on. We learn more about Adradimon and who they are, and it seems as though those are the ones who put Tailmon in the position that it was in within Dark Knightmon, Skull Knightmon. And look, it's very clear, at least from the implications of their conversation, that they've been doing things in the background for quite some time. And their plan is very intentional. They haven't just been rolling with it. It's been planned from very early on. You know, I have to reiterate, the ways this episode ties in all the previous episodes before it is just so great. You've got Yamato acknowledging the actual event in episode 24. Against Digimon, so there is a causality there. From Vadimon's exposition you understand Leomon's motives. It wants the power that rightly defeated it in the past, in the Holy War. I mean, understandably. Leomon has been wanting to draw out the Digestion's power the entire time. That was the point in throwing all of these mindless puppeteer villains at the group. It's because it's been trying to farm XP, to put it simply. The whole deal with Mugendramon though isn't super clear because it seems to be designed for exactly what it was doing, shooting down the Cloud Continent. We don't know why, it's just adamant on doing that. It's getting attacked left, right and center. Even as it was getting wailed on by Wargreymon, it was still shooting the Cloud Continent. It wasn't even bothered. It seemed like it only had one role, but despite this, Adradimon insists it's the strongest Digimon. There's just so much going on here. On top of this, the synopsis translations were kind of weird because it made it seem like Biomon, Palmon, and Gomamon were absorbed, but really it was just knocking them out of their ultimate level and absorbing that damaged data. I don't think we've seen a Digimon absorb data when the Digimon itself hasn't been defeated yet. It also said Metal Garurumon was involved in this absorbing, I just didn't see that. And then like we also said in the pre-show, Holy Angemon is here, doing the business, having much more of an effect on Mugendramon, naturally, than the other ultimates, but it's more or less protecting Commandomon because I think it's the most reliable thing around to do that right now. It's being used the last line of defense, as it should be. We've got this sick animation for Matt before he transforms with Metal Gurumon, much like Taichi's in episode 33. That was clean. We can at least take that away from the animation in today's episode. I don't think there was anything else that was flashy. But there were insane scenes, Wargreymon being pushed back, Kari's instinct giving Wargreymon the holy boost, pretty much saving him from being obliterated. Fallbacks to the battle with Velgamon, when they had the holy boost before. This is but another example of how this episode ties in loads of the events of the past, and all of a sudden the story is more linear now. I think the scene when Taichi was on comms with the rest of the Digidestined I think had quite a lot of weight to it. It's like he knew this sacrifice had to be made. I think this is where my problem is, because if this same battle with all the same moves, throwing the Draymond Claws, the shield, Gaia Force, punching through the tail, getting impaled, Wargreymon absolutely willing on Mugendramon, all of these things would have just been so much more mind-blowing if it wasn't dominated by still frames. You know, the feeling was there. The feeling of the 1v1 building the tension was there. Any part of this episode that wasn't a fight scene looked amazing, and anything that was just really standard. It did not look terrible, but it was very, very standardized. Now, I hope their reasoning for this is because they're saving for the next 2 weeks. They're in credit of really blowing us away in the next 2 weeks. I feel like we're owed this. You know, I'd seen the scene with Mugendramon blowing up, with Taichi honest, that supposedly Taichi is dead, but with Wargreymon being so battered, that's Taichi and Wargreymon out of the picture for the next 2 weeks, and it's the final battle. So that's very, very interesting. Like, very interesting. You know, there's obviously better things to come, but Mugendramon's role was just really strange in this. What do you guys think Mugendramon's role was in this episode? Because it just seems like, why would you build it claiming it's the most powerful Digimon, but then have it with a self-destruct mode? Were they expecting it would lose? Because to me it seems like its only real role was to take down the Cloud Continent for whatever purposes that may have, and maybe the self-destruct mode was to completely blow it up. But you guys let me know what you think. So look, today's episode, I enjoyed it. It did wonders for the story. It had everything together. It brought so much back from what we've seen before. All of this filler's relevant. The feeling was there in the 1v1 with Wargreymon and Mugendramon, but it just, even if they give like maybe 1 or 2 sequences higher animation budget, I don't know. And my expectations weren't even sky high. Like, there are people who really thought this was gonna be like episode 24. But if you compare this episode to episode 24, episode 24 had like nothing coming after it. And well, the animation quality after episode 24 was poor. It was bad. Whereas with this episode, there's so much coming up. There's a lot more. It's the finale. It's the Millenniumon arc. So the context is very different, and you've got to bear that in mind. Plus, COVID's absolutely decimated Tokyo right now. So anyone who says the COVID doesn't affect the budget and the production of the show, they're lying to you. But listen, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I've got more videos coming next week. I have an announcement tomorrow coming for you guys, but just letting you know what I'm doing for the rest of the week. But thank you so much for your time. Let me know if you thought of the episode. You know, I'd love to hear it. But as always, everybody, take care.